Getting started. Hello everyone, this is Underground Network broadcasting live from LA. Please go to youtube.com/underground network and subscribe. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in English, Thursday and Friday in Greek. This is a person just talking about things going on mainly in Greece, Europe as well, the Eurozone, debating on what is happening. It's a subjective view. It's a non-expert's view. It's a non-technocratic view. It's the view of a person because this is my personal involvement in the public life, in politics, and I'm hoping that that way everyone can contribute to a world that needs to change. I hope that people can go back into being involved in the political process, get back their democracy, fight for their rights, etc., etc. And I think through technology we can do that. Underground Network, again, underground, youtube.com/underground network. Please subscribe. I'm gonna start off with something that dates back from 1936. Apologize. It's gonna be I'm gonna be reading some of it. It's some excerpts from Franklin Roosevelt's address announcing the Second New Deal, October 31, 1936. The reason why I'm gonna be reading some of this speeches, just excerpts, is because looking at what is going on in today's Greece and today's Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras from so-called leftist government, which I have not really seen any sort of left-leaning policy so far, actual left-leaning policy. Just a continuation of the previous policies, sugar-coated with whatever, dialectics and other stuff. So I'm just going to go back to 1936, and you can basically replace words like Greece, America with Greece, American people with Greek people. You can replace them with Italian people, French people. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the speech of a leader to the people and the difference with what we have today. So I'm just quoting some parts. Let's stop, and this is quotes. Quote. Let us stop for a moment and analyze calmly and without prejudice the effect on our nation of a victory by either of the major political parties. The problem of the electorate is far deeper, far more vital than the continuance in the presidency of any individual. For the greater issue goes beyond units of humanity. It goes to humanity itself. Do I need to comment on this? Yes, it goes beyond any presidency, beyond any individual, beyond any prime minister, beyond any Mr. Tsipras or any Mr. whoever is at the top of a government. In 1932, says Roosevelt, the issue was the restoration of American democracy, and the American people were in a mood to win. They did win. In 1936, the issue is the preservation of their victory. Again, they are in the mood to win. Again, they will win. No amount of misrepresentation or statistical contortion can conceal or blur or smear that record. Neither the attacks of unscrupulous enemies nor the exaggerations of overzealous friends will serve to mislead the American people. No statistical contortion will blur, will conceal the record. What was our hope in 1932? Above all other things, the American people wanted peace. They wanted peace of mind instead of gnawing fear. First, they sought escape from the personal terror which had stalked them for 3 years. They wanted the peace that comes from security in their homes, safety for their savings, permanence in their jobs, a fair profit from their enterprise. Next, they wanted peace in the community, the peace that springs from the ability to meet the needs of community life. Schools, playgrounds, parks, sanitation, highways, those things which are expected of solvent local government. They sought escape from disintegration and bankruptcy in local and state affairs. I'm just passing most of the, it's quite a long speech, so they wanted to get away from mad years of mirage and 3 long years of despair. Powerful influences strive today to restore that kind of government which, with its doctrine that government is best which is most indifferent. Does that ring a bell to you? We have too much government, we want less government. Well, back in 1936, Roosevelt said that those powerful influences who want less governments, they strive today, meaning 1936, but how timely, again, how prescient today, they were striving to restore that kind of government with its doctrine that the government is best, which is most indifferent. They want indifferent governments everywhere so that those powerful influences can take over. But I missed a few paragraphs that are very important. So what did the nation, the American nation, seek back then? Protection of their currency, fairer wages, the ending of long hours of toil, the abolition of child labor, the elimination of wildcat speculation, the safety of their children from kidnappers. And finally, they sought peace with other nations, peace in a world of unrest. The nation knows that I hate war, says Roosevelt, and I know that the nation hates war. I submit to you a record of peace, says Roosevelt. Written on it are the names of millions who have never had a chance. Men at starvation wages, women in sweatshops, children at looms. Written on it are the names of those who despaired, young men and young women for whom opportunity had become a will-o'-the-wisp. Written on it are the names of farmers whose acres yielded only bitterness, businessmen whose books were portents of disaster, homeowners who were faced with eviction, frugal citizens whose savings were insecure. Written there in large letters are the names of countless other Americans, you can replace this with Greeks, of all parties and all faiths, Americans who had eyes to see and hearts to understand, whose consciences were burdened because too many of their fellows were burdened, who looked on these things 4 years ago and said, this can be changed, we will change it. So, the Greek people believed that the things that were put in place by the previous governments since 2009, 2010, all the memoranda of understanding, all the austerity, the people believed that these could change. We don't have any head of state in today's Europe, in the European Union, who can utter such words as the ones that Roosevelt uttered back in 1936 with the Second New Deal. But how similar? And if one goes further down in that speech, we read about his fight against speculators and bankers. And he says, to use the language of the stockbroker, our needy unemployed would be cared for when, as, and if some fairy godmother should happen on the scene. That reminds me of the free market. that the free market takes care of everything. And he calls that the language of the stockbroker, and that the needy unemployed will be taken care of by some fairy godmother. How incredible. That's almost like 80 years ago. So, anyway, hello to my friends who are already saying hi. The reason why I chose to read that speech, which I've come across a little while ago, is because I've been watching what's been happening in Greece in today's parliamentary session, which I actually honestly refuse to watch. So I just picked some of my favorite relatively legitimate Twitter tweets that I believe usually are pretty accurate in their reporting. And mainly it says that not much of we didn't hear any surprising statements today in the Greek parliament, at least from the prime minister's speech. And some people are writing that there was no substance to any of this. We have some support apparently from the ex-prime minister, Mr. Tsipras, saying that if the current government needs its support, he is there to give it. So the political system is there. Doesn't make any real difference. The political system is there, and it's not a it's the old system. It's still there. The new government, Syriza and Anel, has done nothing really substantial to change anything, and that's a fact. And the sooner some people wake up to that fact, the better it is. If you don't, then we're all gonna get lost. We are already lost. Anyway, one of the reasons why that is let me just go to some of the analyses I've been reading, is that on the 15th of March 2015, you may remember the Prime Minister of Greece, Mr. Tsipras, wrote a letter to Chancellor Angela Merkel, basically begging her to understand the situation the country is in. It was a very submissive letter, to say the least. At least the spirit of the letter had that sort of subjugation. To my taste, I have no agenda. No one is behind me. Some people are asking, what is Underground Network? Who is behind it? Nobody. It's me. That's unusual, I understand, but that's how it is. So in that letter, Mr. Tsipras was saying that basically, help, please help. What a proud prime minister of a proud country, proud people. Anyway, I'm not going to go into the details because I'm really tired of it. But one thing that's important is that, and this has been uttered from the Greek prime minister as well as from the Greek finance minister, that in 4 months Greece is looking to create this this new, what they call contract. Now, the word contract, apparently, from what I'm reading, is not very innocent or harmless. It basically, and also another word that's not harmless is we stopped calling it troika, and now we have elevated the troika into institutions, because institutions actually gives a de facto much greater role in the intervention of all the European Eurozone and IMF role in the affairs of a country. So now it's the institutions, and it's worse than ever to call them that way. So now the new, in March 15, in that letter, Mr. Tsipras and at other times Mr. Varoufakis has been talking about a new contract. where the institutions are going to be involved in the growth and of the country, of the need to change course and not to have those recessionary, that all sounds really good. The problem from apparently a legal standpoint in the international law is the word contract, because it means that you have the institutions which are in the international law. Institutions are a recognized entity, legally, of a state in a way, institutions, and a contract means you have the private international law involved. So we're actually sort of transferring, if we follow the words that are being used by the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and other people in the government. The word contract is sort of tricky because it means that it questions Greece's statehood. It's almost like creating a contract between institutions and a private company, a private entity. So the word contract is no longer an agreement, it's a contract. It entails public and private, and of course a private entity, a company, which it looks like Greece would be reduced to if it has a contract under international law, private international law. It means that it's basically not on an equal position with the institutions, but it's a public and private contract basically. So it diminishes the very existence of statehood for Greece, and it sort of creates what's called it transfers to a sort of new stateness, which means we are basically recreating the notion of the Greek state. And we're also diminishing it by discussing of a contract versus an agreement or anything else under international law, public international law. So that is something to really look into, and these are things that I've been reading. So I'm always citing my sources. And I will do once again, but I think this needs a little bit of attention, because another element that actually confirms, or at least sort of goes into the same direction, is the fact that this 20th of February 2015 Eurogroup letter of Mr. Varoufakis, or agreement, will not be voted in Parliament. So there is this theory that if it is voted in Parliament, it means it recognizes in a way all the previous memoranda of understanding, and it sort of legitimizes the loan agreements. So the theory that we're not gonna have the letter of the 20th of February 2015 to go through Parliament, that way we can be safe in 4 months, and we will not have recognized it. On the other hand, if you have the Greek Parliament is what we have today, at least in principle, what is our democracy, what represents the people in Greece's democracy today. So if nothing goes through the Parliament, it really sort of de facto means we recognize whatever is being said in Brussels, whatever agreement we get, letters signed, sort of whatever contracts we get, is just basically coming from there, and the Parliament doesn't even have the basic. It's even if its basic functions are sort of reduced. So we have a de facto question of the statehood of Greece right now, and maybe we are reinventing, recreating its stateness. This is one way to look at it. I'm not saying it's mine. I'm just sharing it here because nobody talks about it. Apparently, it is very serious when you use the word contract for a country, for a sovereign country, if we can still use the word sovereign country for Greece. And that's all I had to say. Apparently the previous government still was at least in principle, again, typically was following some who would have thought that I would be here saying good stuff about the previous governments anyway, but at least it looks like, and one wants to be objective, it looks like the previous government up until January 25th was sort of keeping in principle typical procedure, and even if it had to go through decrees which were of course very anti-democratic, it would still sort of keeping some of the rules, and had things been discussed in parliament and voted, even if it was with anonymous voting and all those things. But at least it kept those, it was keeping some seeming rules of statehood, which I don't know what this government, Syriza Anel government is doing, but it doesn't look like it's legislating a lot. It's just discussing and talking a lot with Brussels, with all those groups, and Brussels Euro Working Group, Brussels Group, institutions, people coming here, going there. No one understands anything, and no one actually needs to, because there is nothing of substance. Things are not looking good, except for, of course, the IMF, which looks like, as it has been publicly announced, April 9th is a payment due to the IMF. But don't worry about it. We've found all the cash we needed. We've just we went and got some money from pension funds, insurance funds, public insurance funds, and we're good to go. We're going to pay the IMF. By the way, the IMF in its whatever you call that, in its charter. No, it doesn't have a charter, but it allows countries. Apparently, it gives 90 days it gives 90 days to a country which cannot pay on time. It looks like Greece is not going to ask for that because it found all the cash it needed from pension funds and insurance funds. So we're as Mr. Varoufakis says, we're not going to be the first country to default on an IMF loan, which is absolutely inaccurate, if not false. Apparently, Argentina did it, Russia did it, even Ukraine just did it, and that's why the IMF gave extra money. Also, it looks like a lot of countries have done it, and this is proven by the fact that in the last 10-15 years, the IMF has increased its fund. Every country that's a member of the IMF contributes to this fund. From my understanding, what we owe to the IMF, it's not bonds, it's a loan. So the fact that it's a loan makes it it's not under the loan agreement and all the the typical bonds that a country owes. It's a different sort of status. So it looks like any country could sort of delay payment to the IMF for 90 days. Just go and look and search for yourself. But Greece will not delay paying the IMF. Great. That's all I had to say. Some of your messages are here. Aki says, Katerina, what do you think about Panos Kameno's opening subject of partnering with the US to extract the oil in the Aegean? I heard that, and I heard that I heard that he said that we should be sharing or something. I don't know if it's true. I even heard that it's a 70-30%. So 70% goes to whom? Not to Greeks, of course. And 30% goes to Greeks. Aki says, oh yeah, you're writing it in your next message. He even went as far as to state the sharing being 70-30. Is that contract enough for you? That's another contract, I guess. I was talking about the contract. Yeah, that's another contract. What can one say? You know, what can one say? What do I think? Do I look like I think like I agree, or do I look like this sounds right? Obviously, we are in a really terrible state, and I will end today's live with what I have been listening in the past 3-4 days from a professor of political science, Greek professor, Yorgos Kondoyorgis, and he's saying that we're in the same political system, but nothing's changed. It's actually even more dangerous right now because it has this it's even more deceitful because of the nice face, because the left traditionally has all these values of solidarity and blah blah blah, and this is very deceitful for the people, so it's even harder for people to wake up. But it's the same political system, it's the same sell-off, it's the same shit, basically. So that's all I had to say today, really. I'm not much else. I mean, I can finish with some of the words by Roosevelt, who just, in those years, 1930s, like right after the Great Depression, was basically talking to the people, and that's what we need today. We need leaders who talk to the people for real and in substance, and who act on behalf of the people. And the reason why the political system, and we know, hasn't changed is because now in Greece, the political system and the current government speaks on behalf of the people, yet it loses the trust of the people. And okay, people who are going to come back at me and say, where do you see that the people support the government? This is not what statistics are showing. It's the people are decreasingly, the people were supporting the government. The people would support anybody who would support them, and it doesn't look like it's happening. It doesn't. It's been 3 months. It's not looking good. It's going to the right direction. But anyway, so I don't care what numbers are saying, even though numbers are decreasing. But this is what a leader should tell the people, and this is how a leader should be representing its own people. Roosevelt, 1936, to finish. We will continue our efforts on behalf of the farmers of America. With their continued cooperation, we will do all in our power to end the piling up of huge surpluses which spelled ruinous prices for their crops. We will persist in successful action for better land use, for reforestation, for the conservation of water all the way from its source to the sea, for drought and flood control, or for better marketing facilities for farm commodities, for definite reduction of farm tenancy, for encouragement of farmer cooperatives, for crop insurance and a stable food supply. For all these, we only just began to fight. Anyway, this is about farmers, and we know that Greece has a huge agricultural potential. But at the same time, it mentions water. It mentions those utilities, those public goods, which are going to be lost soon if we don't act fast. We're hearing privatizations of water. We're hearing privatizations of the port of Piraeus. This is gonna go. This is going through. Great. One of the most ancient ports of the world, historical port, which a country could make billions out of, is just being sold out. Great. What else? Again, Roosevelt. Of course, we will provide useful work for the needy unemployed. We prefer useful work to the pauperism of a dole. But no, the Greek government prefers citizen smart card and basically charity policies than useful work. Roosevelt was talking about useful work. We prefer useful work to the pauperism of a dole. Here and now, I want to make myself clear about those who disparage their fellow citizens on the relief rolls. They say that those on relief are not merely jobless, that they are worthless. Does that ring a bell to you? Jobless people are being called worthless. How many times in every country does not one hear that? So Roosevelt is saying, I want to make myself clear about those who disparage their fellow citizens on the relief rolls. They say that those on relief are not merely jobless, that they are worthless. Their solution for the relief problem is to end relief, to purge the rolls by starvation. To use the language of the stockbroker, our needy unemployed would be cared for when, as and if some fairy godmother should happen on the scene. Anyway. Okay, one last paragraph. We will continue our efforts for young men and women so that they may obtain an education and an opportunity to put it to use. Of course, we will continue our help for the crippled, for the blind, for the mothers. Our insurance for the mothers. 26,000 deaths in 2014 in Greece. 17,000 births. 26,000 deaths, 17,000 births. Way more deaths than births. They say that in 2080, with the current policies and situation, not even if they worsen, just with under the current conditions, Greece will see its population go from 10 million right now to 7 million. 2080, we're just going to be, at least with today's conditions, we're just going to be reduced by 3 million. In 2014 alone, we had almost 10,000 deaths more than births. Great. So anyway, Roosevelt. We will continue our efforts to help the mothers, our insurance for the unemployed, our security for the aged. Of course, we will continue to protect the consumer against unnecessary price spreads, against the costs that are added by monopoly and speculation. We will continue our successful efforts to increase his purchasing power and to keep it constant. For these things too, and for a multitude of other things like them, we have only just begun to fight, and I already mentioned that. Anyway, all right. Oh, it's funny. You guys are talking about without reading your messages. Yes, Piraeus port privatization. Syriza won't stop it. It's going to China as planned. Yes, hi there. Hi Yota, reviewing some C++ program files while listening. Okay, so anyway, thank you to my dear friends interacting on YouTube Live. Thank you to those of you watching on Meerkat and Twitter. Love to you all. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Roosevelt's speech is to be found in a link that I will post underneath. It's the speech of 1936. I'm hoping one day we will have a leader. I'm hoping this for any country, not only for Greece. One day maybe a leader will just emerge that we'll be able to utter such words in today's world. That's all I had to say for today. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.